It's kind of hard to ignore the buzz around cryptocurrencies these days.
Yeah, it really feels like it's everywhere you look now.
Exactly. Stories about coins just skyrocketing in value.
Yeah.
And you see more and more places starting to accept crypto payments, right?
Maybe even your local food truck, potentially. Who knows?
Right. And the numbers, they kind of back it up. We've actually seen some popular ones jump, over 100% in just the last 6 months?
Mm-hmm. And over 100,000 merchants worldwide taking crypto now.
Yeah. And that number is apparently expected to double soon. It's wild.
Which, naturally leads you to wonder about the nuts and bolts of it all.
Beyond just buying and selling.
Exactly. Like, could I actually create my own cryptocurrency? That curiosity is definitely growing.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack the process of creating your own crypto asset.
Sounds good.
Now, it's important to make a quick distinction right off the bat. We're mostly talking about creating a token.
Right, which is different from a coin.
Yeah, exactly. A token doesn't operate on its own blockchain. It's built, on top of an existing network.
That's a really good analogy someone used, like building an app for your phone versus building the entire operating system from scratch.
Perfect way to think about it.
And for this deep dive, we've pulled together information from various expert sources.
Looking at the whole process, right?
Yeah, from the initial ideas, the concepts, right through to the actual steps, and importantly, the costs involved.
So the mission today is really to give everyone a clear understanding of what it takes to bring a crypto token into existence.
And maybe touch on some of the implications, too, of this technology becoming, well, more accessible.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with the real groundwork. Even before you think about code or platforms, what are some of the foundational things to consider?
Well, right out of the gate, it's crucial to understand that a technically sound crypto isn't, enough by itself.
Okay.
What else? Just like any product, it needs marketing. And critically, community adoption. Without people actually wanting to use it, its value, well, it'll likely stay minimal.
Makes sense. If no one's interested, it's just digital dust.
Precisely. Think of all the great inventions that never caught on a brilliant token without users faces the same fate.
Okay. And we touched on it, but let's just reiterate that core difference between coins and tokens. It feels pretty fundamental.
Absolutely. So a coin like Bitcoin or Solana, it has its own dedicated blockchain.
Its own digital ledger system.
That blockchain records and verifies all the transactions for that specific coin. A token, on the other hand, is created on an existing blockchain network.
Like Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain or Solana, those big ones.
Exactly those. They essentially piggyback on the security and the infrastructure that's already been built by these established blockchains.
So if you want to create a coin, you're basically building or modifying an entire decentralized ledger system. That sounds monumental.
It certainly can be. There are generally 3 main paths. Build your own blockchain from scratch, modify the code of an existing one, or
build a token on top of one, which is our focus.
Exactly. And building a token is generally a far simpler and less resource-intensive process.
Easier and cheaper. Definitely appealing words.
And this dramatic reduction in cost, it's kind of democratizing access, isn't it? Could lead to a whole explosion of niche applications we haven't even conceived of yet.
That's a really interesting angle. So beyond just the technical ease, what else needs to be on your radar if you're considering creating a token?
Several key considerations, yeah. You'll need to think about the legality of your project for sure.
All right, the legal time.
Then the specific use cases for your token. What problem does it actually solve? What utility does it provide?
What's its purpose?
Exactly. Then there's tokenomics, which we should definitely delve into later. And of course, the startup costs involved.
Got it. Each of those needs careful planning.
Absolutely, to give your token a fighting chance in this market.
All right, okay, so you've got your idea. You understand coin versus token. The next logical step seems to be figuring out where your token is actually going to live, the platform choice.
Exactly. Tokens reside on specific base blockchains, and they have to adhere to certain technical standards.
Like ERC20 on Ethereum. I hear that one a lot.
That's the most common one on Ethereum, yeah. Similarly, Binance Smart Chain has BEP20, and Solana uses the SPL standard.
And these standards are like blueprints.
Pretty much. They ensure compatibility within their ecosystems, makes it easier for different applications, different wallets to actually interact with the token.
So it's like choosing the right plug socket. It has to fit the system. Now, utility. How does that differ between coins and tokens?
Good question. Coins often have utility across their entire network. For instance, ETH is used to pay for gas fees, right? The transaction costs on Ethereum. And some coins also grant holders governance rights over the blockchain itself, letting them vote on changes.
Okay. And tokens.
Tokens, however, typically provide specific utility within their own projects.
So more project-specific.
Right.
Like governance over the project or staking for rewards.
Exactly, those things. Or maybe access to certain features. But importantly, tokens are not typically used for paying the base blockchain's gas fees.
Oh, right. Those are usually paid in the underlying coin, like you still need ETH to send an ERC20 token?
Correct. That's a key difference.
That makes sense. So why do we see so many tokens being created on platforms like Ethereum? It just seems to be a really popular choice.
Well, there are several pretty compelling reasons. Platforms like Ethereum have, really well-established security. That's a big one.
Trust factor.
Definitely. Plus a vast and active developer ecosystem and a huge community of existing users.
So it provides a solid foundation and makes it easier for new projects to maybe gain some traction.
Exactly. Easier to get noticed, easier to integrate. It's also worth noting, many popular coins actually started their journey as ERC20 tokens.
Really? Like they used Ethereum as a launchpad?
Sort of, yeah. Used Ethereum's infrastructure as a kind of incubator before eventually launching their own blockchains.
Interesting. Okay, let's zoom in on some of those key considerations we mentioned. The white paper seems to come up constantly. What exactly is it, and why is it supposedly so important?
The white paper is essentially a detailed technical document. It outlines pretty much everything about your crypto project.
The whole plan?
Yeah. It explains the project's goals, the problem it aims to solve, the technology it'll use, and importantly, its plans for the future, including fundraising, if that's part of it.
So it's kind of for investors, but also potential users.
Exactly. It's a crucial tool for attracting early investors and supporters. It's meant to demonstrate the project's legitimacy and its vision. Think of it as a combination of a business plan and a technical manual.
Okay, business plan meets tech manual. But, we've also seen projects with very polished white papers just completely fail, right? Isn't there a risk of maybe over-relying on this document?
That's a very, very valid point. A white paper is a crucial first step, absolutely, but it's by no means a guarantee of success.
So look beyond the paper.
Definitely. It's essential to look at the team behind it, their track record, the actual real-world utility of the token. A great white paper is a good sign, but thorough research is always recommended.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned the use case. Why is having that unique selling proposition so vital for a new cryptocurrency?
Well, simply put, the market is incredibly crowded.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Right. So a clear and compelling use case is what differentiates your crypto. Every successful project ideally solves a specific problem or offers a unique utility.
Without a clear purpose.
It becomes really difficult to attract users and generate any real demand for your token. This use case will also heavily influence, the type of blockchain and tech you end up choosing.
It all connects back. What real-world need will it fill? That's the core question.
Precisely.
Right. Need a reason to exist. Now, let's talk about something that sounds a bit like economics, but with a crypto twist. Tokenomics. What does that actually entail?
Tokenomics, yeah. It refers to the economics of your cryptocurrency. Simple as that.
Okay, so it's supply and demand.
It encompasses everything related to supply and demand, yes, including how many tokens will ever be created, the total supply.
How they're distributed.
How they'll be distributed over time, yeah. How many are owned by the creators or early investors. And any mechanisms for controlling the supply.
Like burning tokens.
Yeah.
Taking them out of circulation. Or buyback programs.
Exactly those things. Understanding the tokenomics is crucial for potential investors because it can significantly impact the long-term value and sustainability of the crypto.
It's all about the incentives and potential for appreciation or depreciation, I guess.
Right. So beyond just the numbers, what are some maybe unconventional tokenomic models you've seen that really seem to drive user engagement and long-term value?
Oh, that's a great question. I've seen some projects incorporate staking rewards that decrease over time to really incentivize getting in early.
Encourage early adoption.
And others that burn a small percentage of tokens with every single transaction, which gradually reduces the total supply, making it deflationary.
Yeah, innovative tokenomics can be a real game changer, can't they?
It really seems like it. Okay, so we've covered the groundwork. Now let's get into the more practical side. How do you actually make one of these tokens, and what kind of costs are we looking at?
Okay, so there are essentially two main approaches to the technical creation part.
Right.
The first is coding your own smart contract.
The more complex route.
It is.
Right.
It requires significant development expertise in programming languages like Solidity, which is used for Ethereum.
Okay.
And if you go this route, security is absolutely paramount. You would absolutely need to invest in smart contract audits.
To find bugs before launch.
Exactly. To identify and fix any potential vulnerabilities. Think of an audit like hiring a cybersecurity firm to rigorously test new software.
Makes sense.
In the crypto world, these weaknesses could lead directly to loss of funds. Audits are crucial to prevent attacks like re-entrancy issues.
Where attackers can exploit code flaws to drain funds.
That's the one. Malicious actors exploiting loopholes.
Okay, so coding from scratch sounds like a serious undertaking. What's the other option for those of us who aren't coding wizards?
The second, and generally much easier approach, is to use existing platforms that offer no-code or low-code tools for token creation.
Ah, the user-friendly option.
Pretty much. Platforms like Ethereum and Solana provide these standardized frameworks, like ERC20 and SPL, which simplify the process considerably. They offer pre-built templates and functionalities.
That sounds much more accessible. Can you walk us through an example? I know we looked at a YouTube video about creating a Solana token.
Absolutely. The video we looked at demonstrated how to create a Solana token using a platform called, I think, Orion Tools.
Okay.
And what's remarkable is that it requires absolutely no coding knowledge.
Zero coding.
Yeah. The process involved connecting your Solana wallet, naming your token, setting its symbol and total supply, uploading an image. Pretty straightforward stuff.
Simple enough.
And then crucially, revoking the mint and freeze authorities.
Right. Why is revoking those so important again?
Revoking the mint authority prevents anyone, including the creator, from creating more tokens in the future. That builds trust and scarcity.
Gotcha. Finite supply.
And revoking freeze authority means no one can arbitrarily freeze tokens in someone's wallet. Another trust signal.
Okay. And the cost in that Solana example.
The video highlighted that the cost for this initial token creation was actually quite low, around 7 SOL at the time they recorded it.
7 SOL.
Yeah.
So not thousands of dollars necessarily.
Not for the basic creation on Solana, no. Which, this ease of creation raises an interesting point.
Doesn't this low barrier to entry also open the door to maybe a flood of low quality or even less reputable tokens?
That's a really important question. It seems like while it democratizes creation, which is good in many ways, it also puts more responsibility, more onus on the individual user or investor to do their own research very carefully.
Buyer beware, more than ever, perhaps. Okay, so you've got your token created on Solana using a tool. What's the next step to make it actually tradable?
Right. The next step demonstrated in the video is launching a liquidity pool on a decentralized exchange. In this case, they used Radium on Solana.
A liquidity pool.
Yeah.
Explain that simply, like a digital vending machine.
That's a pretty good analogy. On one side, you put your new token, and on the other side, you put SOL by depositing an equal value of both.
Equal values.
Into this machine, you create a pool of liquidity that allows people to buy and sell your token. The ratio of the two assets in the pool determines the initial price.
So when someone buys your token, they add SOL and take out your token, and the price nudges up.
Exactly, and vice versa for selling. The video mentioned that Radium's V3 update had made this process much cheaper than it used to be.
Cheaper to set up the pool.
Yeah, and they recommended a fee tier of 0.25% for the transactions within that pool.
Okay, so you put in your tokens and some SOL, and that creates the market. But how do you ensure that the liquidity you just added can't just be pulled out by the creators later on? That seems like a huge risk for early investors.
That is a critical point for building trust. It's the classic rug pull fear.
Right.
So, to demonstrate long-term commitment and reassure potential buyers, the video showed the process of burning the liquidity pool token.
Burning the LP tokens, what does that mean?
When you create the liquidity pool, the exchange gives you back special LP tokens that represent your share of that pool.
Yeah.
Burning these LP tokens using a tool like Sol Incinerator essentially destroys them permanently.
Ah, so if the LP tokens are destroyed,
it makes it impossible for the creators to use them to withdraw the initial liquidity they added to the pool. It effectively locks that liquidity.
Wow, that's actually really clever. It's like saying, look, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we physically can't run off with the initial funds now.
Precisely. It's become a key signal of legitimacy. You often see projects promoting their locked liquidity, that green lock icon people look for.
That's a really important signal for anyone looking to trade a new token then. Okay, now we saw that Solana example was relatively low cost for basic creation, but let's zoom out. What are the broader factors that can really influence the overall cost? We looked at that article that dug into this.
Yes, the "How much does it cost to create a crypto token in 2025" article. It outlines several key factors influencing the total cost.
Such as?
First is the token design itself, and significantly, the choice of blockchain platform.
Right, because different chains have different features and fees.
Exactly. Different features and very different transaction fees, the gas fees.
Hmm.
Creating on Ethereum might have very different cost implications than on Binance Smart Chain or Solana, just due to those underlying fee structures.
It's like choosing a neighborhood. Rent and utilities vary. What else drives up expenses?
The article also highlighted feature integration, the more complex features you want, like specific token supply mechanisms, maybe making it burnable or mintable after launch, adding taxation on transactions, or putting in anti-whale protection.
Things to stop big holders manipulating the price.
Right. All those features can require more development work, which increases costs. Quality assurance, thorough testing is another big one.
Got to make sure it works and is secure.
Yep, that can be a substantial part of the budget. And finally, token marketing, content creation, maybe that white paper for an ICO. All that adds to the launch expense.
So it's really not just the technical creation, but all the surrounding elements that contribute to the final bill.
Absolutely. It's the whole package.
Were there any tips in that article for keeping costs down, especially for projects just starting out?
Yeah, there were some useful practical tips. Choosing a blockchain with lower gas fees is obviously a big one.
Makes sense.
Focusing on just the essential functionality initially. Avoid trying to build everything at once.
We're lean.
Exactly. And interestingly, investing in experienced developers. Well, that sounds like it costs more upfront.
It can save money long term by avoiding mistakes.
That's the idea. Efficient, secure development minimizes the risk of costly errors or vulnerabilities down the line. So, implement minimal features first, then scale up.
That all makes practical sense. Start lean, choose your platform wisely, invest in expertise where it counts. Now, we briefly touched on smart contracts earlier. For ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, they're key, right?
They are the core, yes. Yeah. ERC20 tokens on Ethereum are implemented using smart contracts.
Which are like self-executing contracts, code that runs itself.
That's a good way to put it. The terms of the agreement are written directly into the code, and they execute automatically when conditions are met.
Okay. The article we saw had a snippet of Solidity code.
It did. Solidity is the main language for Ethereum smart contracts. The snippet showed a basic ERC20 token contract inheriting from a base contract.
From OpenZeppelin, you mentioned.
Yes. OpenZeppelin provides widely used, audited libraries for secure smart contract development. Their ERC20 base contract already handles many standard functions, like mint for creating new tokens. Developers build on that foundation.
So, in essence, this code defines all the rules and behaviors of your specific token.
Correct.
So even if you're using one of those no-code platforms we talked about, under the hood, it's probably deploying and interacting with these kinds of smart contracts for you.
Almost certainly, yes. They automate the process of generating and deploying that code.
Right. And you really can't stress enough the importance of security when it comes to these smart contracts, can you?
Absolutely not. It's paramount.
We mentioned re-entrancy attacks earlier. Can you just briefly explain what that is again and why audits are so critical?
Sure. As the Chainlink article really emphasized, smart contract audits are essential. Security experts review the code line by line.
Looking for holes.
Exactly. A re-entrancy attack is a specific type of exploit where a malicious contract can basically trick a vulnerable contract into repeatedly calling back into itself before the first operation is finished.
Allowing it to drain funds it shouldn't have access to.
Precisely. Think of it like a loophole that lets someone withdraw more money than they actually deposited by exploiting timing. Professional audits are designed to catch exactly these kinds of subtle but devastating flaws.
Protecting user funds and the project's reputation. Absolutely vital. Okay, now, to bring this all together with a real-world example, we looked at Eastgate blockchain technology and their EGP token. What can we learn from their approach?
Eastgate is an interesting case study. They're a biotech company, first off, which is maybe not the first thing you think of with crypto.
Right, using blockchain for healthcare solutions?
Exactly. Their native utility token, EGP, is designed specifically to facilitate secure and discounted transactions, particularly for their healthcare-related products, and it runs on the Ethereum blockchain.
So a very clear, specific use case tied directly to their core business.
Their model really highlights a key insight. Successful tokens often solve a tangible problem within an existing industry. They're leveraging blockchain for efficiency, not just speculation.
They mentioned wanting to remove intermediaries, speed up transactions, lower costs within healthcare.
That seems to be the core aim, yeah.
What about their security measures and how they launched?
They emphasize their security features, custom smart contracts for authentication, an immutable registry for records. They even mention plans for insurance for users, which is quite unique.
Insurance for token holders. That is interesting.
And they have an order matching engine for quick trades. Their launch strategy is also notable. They describe it as a verifiable fair launch.
Meaning no ICO, no initial exchange offering.
Correct. No ICO or IEO. They emphasize a community ownership model instead. That approach can definitely help build trust and avoid some criticisms of traditional crypto fundraising.
That fair launch concept seems like a smart way to build trust right from the start. And what about the specifics of their token, the EGP Tokenomics?
Eastgate pre-mined 20,000 EGP tokens, and they clearly state the allocations in their tokenomics.
So portions for purchase, staking rewards.
Founders and advisors, development, marketing, and reserves, all laid out. And crucially, they mention a significant portion is locked via smart contracts to control the release over time.
A controlled supply and transparent allocation. Seems important.
Very. It helps manage inflation and shows planning for the long-term health of the token's ecosystem. This whole example really underscores the importance of having that defined use case and a really well-thought-out tokenomics structure when you're creating your own crypto.
It definitely brings all the pieces we've discussed together. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the absolute key things you think someone should take away if they're actually contemplating creating their own crypto token?
I think the most important takeaway is that creating a crypto token has become increasingly accessible, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Especially if you leverage existing blockchain platforms and their tools.
Right. The barrier to entry on the tech side is lower.
But, and this is a big, but don't mistake that ease of technical creation for a lack of necessary planning and strategy.
It's not just point and click success.
Not at all. You need to carefully consider the underlying technology, your choice of platform, the token's economics, the tokenomics security, and most importantly, its intended use case. What is it for?
Right. The technical hurdle might be lower, but the strategic thinking, the business planning, is still absolutely crucial.
Exactly. While tools can simplify the technical steps, a truly successful token needs a clear purpose. It needs a strong and engaged community around it, and it needs robust security measures to build trust and actually achieve some longevity.
Makes perfect sense. So here's a final thought maybe for you to chew on for our listeners to think about. With this relative ease of creating tokens now, what are the most innovative and genuinely valuable applications we might see emerge in the future?
That's the big question.
And maybe how can we, as users or potential investors, get better at distinguishing those valuable projects from stuff that might just be a fleeting trend or, worse, something less scrupulous?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Sorting the signal from the noise.
It definitely feels like there's a lot more to explore in this whole world of blockchain platforms, token standards, real-world use cases. And understanding these fundamentals we've talked about today is really just the first step in navigating this rapidly evolving landscape.